Hey everyone, in any project, there's this invisible force that can either rocket it to success or, well, quietly sink the whole thing. And it's not the budget, it's not the timeline, it's the people. So today, we're going to break down stakeholder management, the real secret weapon for making sure your project doesn't just survive, it actually thrives.
So let me ask you something right off the bat. Just forget about the money, the deadlines, all the tech for a second. What do you think is the single biggest reason a project actually makes it across the finish line successfully?
And here it is. The answer is effective stakeholder engagement. See, it's not really about the tasks and the Gantt charts. It's about people, managing their expectations, their needs, and, their influence. This is the secret ingredient we're going to get into today.
Okay, let's dive right in. For our first section, we're really going to dig into why stakeholders are, without a doubt, the absolute core of any project's success. Because before we get to the how, you've got to really get the why.
So what are we actually talking about here? Well, our source material gives us this perfectly clear definition. It's all about aligning what the project is trying to achieve with what the stakeholders expect it to achieve. And the two magic words here, communication and collaboration. That's the whole game.
And check this out. I think this slide paints such a clear picture. It's like you're at a fork in the road. Down one path, you've got poor engagement, and that leads straight to missed goals, conflict, and endless delays. But on the other path, with effective engagement, you get alignment, collaboration, and ultimately success. The difference is just night and day.
All right, so now that we're all on the same page about why this matters so much, let's get to the next piece of the puzzle. Understanding your key players. This is where we get into what I like to call the art of analysis. Figuring out who's who in the zoo and what actually makes them tick.
And look, this is way more than just making a list of names and job titles. Stakeholder analysis is a deep dive. It's absolutely essential for understanding the role each person plays, what they really need from this project, and, this is the big one, how much influence they actually have over whether it sinks or swims. And it really boils down to this super simple three-step process. First, you identify. Who are all the people with a stake in this thing? Get them all down. Then you analyze. This is where you dig in. What do they want? How much power do they have? And finally, you strategize. Okay, now that I know that, how am I actually going to engage with them? Identify, analyze, strategize. It's a really powerful little framework.
So, once you've done all that great analysis, what's next? Well, that leads us perfectly into our third section, planning your engagement. This is where you turn all that insight into an actual, concrete, actionable strategy.
A really winning plan isn't just some document that sits on a shelf. It's a living strategy. It starts with those key stakeholders you already identified. From there, you've got to define who does what so there's no confusion. Then you build out how you're going to communicate with everyone. And you do it all in a way that makes sure every single action pushes the project's main goals forward. See how it all connects?
So you're probably thinking, how on earth do I keep all of this organized? And that's a great question, which brings us to Section 4, the Essential Toolkit. These are the practical, real-world tools that help you turn that strategy into something you can actually manage and track.
So our source highlights a few really powerful ones. First, you've got stakeholder registers. Think of this as your master list, your single source of truth for who everyone is. Then you've got your communication platforms, the Slacks and Teams of the world that keep the conversation going. And then there's one of my personal favorites for just cutting through the noise, the RACI matrix. Yeah, let's zoom in on that one for a second, because I'm telling you, this thing is a powerhouse for bringing clarity to pretty much any project.
So this is a RACI matrix, and honestly, it's a total game changer for killing that classic, "oh, I thought you were doing that" problem we've all run into. It stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. So for any given task, like approve budget, you can see instantly who's who. The department head is accountable. The buck stops with them. The project manager needs to be consulted. It just replaces all the assumptions with total clarity. It's amazing.
And that, of course, leads us perfectly into our final section, mastering communication. Because, listen, having all the right tools is great, but actually using them to keep everyone aligned and moving in the same direction, that's the real magic.
So, a really solid communication plan needs a few key things. First, you gotta have clear channels. How do we give updates? Is it Slack, email, a weekly meeting? Just decide. Second, you need regular ways to get feedback. This isn't a dictatorship. How do stakeholders get their input heard?
And finally, it has to be adaptable. The plan you start with might not be the plan you need 3 months in. It's got to be able to change and evolve.
I absolutely love this quote from our source material. It's that mix of structure and evolving that is so powerful. You need that structure as your foundation, but you need that flexibility, that adaptability to handle whatever the project throws at you and keep everybody on the same page.
So what's the big takeaway here? When you strip everything else away, all the tools, all the charts, all the plans, it boils down to this. Stakeholder management is really just relationship management. All of this stuff is just here to help us do one thing: build strong, trusting, collaborative relationships. Because at the end of the day, successful projects are always built on successful relationships.
So I want to leave you with one final thought, a question to take with you into your work. Who is the one stakeholder, just one, that you need to connect with this week to really push your project forward? Think about it. Thanks for watching.